Welcome to NRL 360 Rugby League from every angle. Joining me again, the great Gordon Tallis. That's been the journos in Paul Crawley and Dean Ritchie, and Knights in crisis as speculation intensifies around Kalyn Ponga and their coach Adam O'Brien. What is the latest?
The latest is that the club continues to say it's speculation, but it's out there that the coach is in serious trouble. He'll be lucky to stay on past the end of the season, and the moment the word starts spreading that Ponga's looking at options, it tells you that he's on his way.
Certainly the suggestions out of Newcastle today, Braith, were that the fears are increasing that Kalyn Ponga won't be there next year. Some Newcastle officials desperately tried to find this mysterious New Zealand manager today. They found out his identity, but they couldn't find him. He wouldn't return calls. And certainly there's a growing speculation that he will end up in French rugby or Japanese rugby. But I am told quite categorically that he will not be at all interested in playing for the All Blacks.
Why is that?
He just doesn't want to, as I understand it.
What about another league team?
That would depend, Braith, on whether the Newcastle Knights allow that to happen. He's still got 2 more years to go on his existing deal. I'd be surprised. I think Kalyn Ponga wants a change. I think he wants to head overseas, and I think somewhere in France would suit Kalyn.
The bit of cynic in me is a bit of Sonny Bill Williams go over to Japanese or French rugby and come back to the side that he's been linked to. Like everybody has mentioned, the Roosters. A chance on that?
Oh, it's always a chance where you know Nick Politis is involved, but he'd have to get a release. I think no matter where he goes in the world...
So you think they'll release him to go to rugby?
I think they would release him to go to rugby if that's Kalyn's wish, given the service that he's given to Newcastle and the Newcastle community. But I don't think there would be any release to go to the Roosters.
But what Gordy says would be a genuine issue, because if he goes over and has a short stint in rugby and then, say, comes back next season midway through, does the NRL grant him permission to play for another club, or do they hold firm? Because the problem is, there's... Phil Gould was out there last night saying, you'd hate to see him go to a loss to rugby league. And there's no doubt in the world other clubs would want to do that if he is an available player. Maybe the Knights, though, see it as an opportunity to cut their losses. It frees up, $1.4 million in the salary cap. They could go looking for whether it be a halfback, a hooker, a
middle,
for the same amount of money, and move Fletcher Sharp to one.
But who do they buy? And we'll get to all that soon. Despite all the headlines, it was business as usual in Steel City, according to Bradman Best.
Yeah, there's a bit going on outside these walls, but I guess that's the media, and it comes with the job. But us in the playing group, we haven't looked too much into it. We all know it's a business at the end of the day. Coach is still coaching, KP's still here, so until it comes from them, then we'll know.
So you haven't heard anything from either of those?
No, I haven't heard anything yet.
Let's start with Kalyn Ponga. Are they getting value for money for him so far?
No, they're not. Look, go back to 2023, the final 9 rounds of the season. On his way to winning the Dally M medal, he was unbelievable. We all know what a great player Kalyn is when he's at his very best, but value for money, he hasn't averaged. I think 1 year he might have played 20 games. The rest of the seasons he hasn't aimed up for what his talents and what his pay grade suggests.
He's clearly an elite player, but 1.4 million crawls, you're right. I don't think he's given them consistent value for money. Yeah. He has the odd game here and there, Gordon, where he looks like one of the all-time great players, but consistently over a sustained period, they just don't get the value.
Yeah, not all his fault, and it hasn't been, being out of form. I think the injuries
as well.
Yeah, he had a lot of help.
Fullback.
He had the head injuries, and then obviously he's been getting a lot of lower limb injuries as well. But certainly consistency. If you look at someone like a Tedesco, you don't think that they've got the value for money.
But even without injury this year, like if you go and look at his performances for Newcastle this year, he's been way below his best. Yeah. And even at Origin level this year, I thought his first 2 games were a long way from what you expect from Kalyn Ponga, and it would have been really interesting to see if Billy would have stuck with him for 3, because he didn't deserve to be in that team.
It was a bit of an indifferent year so far for Kalyn, and I said it leading up to Origin 2, and then after Origin 2, I wouldn't have been surprised if they did drop him, because Billy was making big calls and he wasn't good in both Origin games, really. He was okay in game 1. He was poor in their win in game 2. But then he had probably his best game of the year against the Dolphins after that game too, and I thought, okay, this is looking good. He'll get picked for game 3, and there's a good opportunity for him there. So should he repay the Knights though? Should he? Does he owe the Knights?
Well, he said when he was negotiating his last deal and he went and met with Bennett. Remember, he had that meeting with Bennett, and they weren't impressed with the way that the hard way Bennett went about the meeting and the truths that were spoken. He said, "I want to go back to Newcastle and I want to win a premiership with the Knights." Well, has he achieved that? Because he got his 2-year extension that takes him through for another 2 years after this, and he walks out without doing what he said. In saying that, because he's not aiming up to his pay packet, it is an opportunity for Knights to use that salary and try and build in another direction. You know what? I got thinking about it today and I thought to myself, 2 months ago, this would have almost worked at the perfect timing for the Knights because you had a guy like Sexton on the market, you had Reid Marnie on the market, you would have got
Fogarty.
2 for the price of 1.
Fogarty was on the market for the Raiders.
And it would have been the perfect time now at this part of the season, and who's on offer for next year. If he is to go, it kind of does leave him in the lurch.
It's bittersweet, I think, because if he goes to another club, you could see him killing it. But Bulldog, before we unpack this any further, a short message from your biggest supporter.
Unfortunately, I can't speak on, is it Dennis the Bullfrog Richie? Dennis the Bullfrog Richie?
Well, there he is, the great Andre. We haven't spoken for a while, Braith. You know what?
He changed your nickname forever.
I get more bullfrog than bulldog, so for that, Andrew, I say thank you. So, to Andrew Ponga, if Kalyn goes, you can go as well. Ta-da, Andrew. Oh, ta-da, Andy.
You get Dennis as well.
I get Dennis as well. I get it all.
But
I get worse off you and Braith.
You look like a Dennis.
You think the Knights would be happy to see the back of him, do you, or not?
Oh, I'm not saying that, Braith, but I think they could get more value for their $1.4 million a year.
Who would they buy, though?
No, where and who?
Well, I think they'd be looking at either a halfback or in the halves where they've
they
struggled all
bought
year.
him. They bought Dylan Brown to play that.
Well,
Yeah,
there's
let's
one,
be
but I
fair
still
to
think
him.
there's another spot there.
Well, let's be fair to him. Dylan Brown has shown no signs of being a chief playmaker, a number 7, does he? Like what Mitchell Moses, he's had an opportunity in recent times. And he just hasn't taken on that
But that's my
responsibility
point.
at Parramatta.
Dylan is not a half. Like
So
a
they
halfback.
need a halfback.
They've spent
That's exactly what they need.
1.3 to 1.4 on him a year now for the next 10 years. They need a genuine 7. Who would you go for?
Well, like I said, Sexton, if he would have been available a month or 2 ago, he would have been the perfect buy. Reid
he
Marnie
was.
would have been a great buy for him.
But he
because
has been
Brayley's on his
available.
way down to Canberra next
He
year.
has been available.
Yes, but they didn't know at that stage that Kalyn was potentially going to walk out at the end of the season, did they?
Yeah, but they still needed a halfback.
Yeah.
Kalyn's not going to go into the number 7.
Yeah, but salary cap wise, freeing up $1.4 million opens up a lot of
They
opportunity.
got a lot of
but
money
then-
for a halfback.
Yeah.
And you know, can they pinch one? Do they get the next up-and-coming young gun? Like,
A couple of those
He's got
Roosters
the
One of
boys.
the Roosters boys.
yeah, they
Just
could.
throwing it out there. If Kalyn Ponga leaves and goes to play rugby overseas, what's his legacy? Does he go down as an NRL great? I don't think I can put him in that category.
Oh, potentially he could have been. I think.
I don't think he's.
a very good
he's
player.
reached that level.
I think he's a very good player. He's played great at State of Origin. He's played really good at every level. Probably just not as consistent as some of the greatest playmakers, but he has been a good player.
Oh, he's a great
a very
player.
good
Has he been a great captain for Newcastle? Is another question I reckon that you look at and you think, fairly or unfairly, when you think of Kalyn, you often go back to the strawberry milkshake quote when Nathan Brown's job was on the line at the time, and I reckon it's a problem at the club at the moment. Is they've gone so far away from the DNA that made the Knights so successful. Like when you look back through all the great Knights players, they worked to that Newcastle culture, that
Coleman and
hard-working, down-to-earth sort of blokes. And to me, there's still players in that system who represent what that's about. But I think from a leadership perspective, and I think I'm going up to the chief executive, through to the coach, through to the captain, I think they've lost their way. Like you go back to the Chiefs of the world and the Johns brothers, the Gidleys, you know, Robbie McCormack, Mark Sargent, all those blokes Mark Glanville, who typified what Newcastle are about. And I think that's where they need to get back as a culture at that club.